Now, I know we're not in these Hebraic times as we study this material, but I'm going to talk to you about some things that are unusual in your thinking. And by the way, this is for those who believe I am a teacher. To my sons, my daughters, my brothers and sisters, my grandchildren, all others, but study to show yourself approved. This is my personal Bible study. This is my idea of leaving a legacy for my grandchildren and their children and their children. And my children. My children, my children, their children, their children's children, you know. It's the one bit of fun I get to have. We're in Deuteronomy chapter 23 still, but we're talking about something completely different, and that is when it's time to go to war. You are a warrior. Let me explain that. In being a warrior, that means that you are a part of a tribe. And you are called to fight. And what that means is you're called to stand together against your enemies. You do have enemies. You just have to make sure the tribe you're a part of is fighting the good fight of faith. The implication of being a warrior, or the implied statement of being a warrior, means that you know the rules of war. And you're either a foot soldier or you're a general, but you're in some part of this a warrior. Whether you're leading or you're following, you're a warrior. What I don't want you to think is that in being a warrior, that there is not some form of humanity that you still have. However, those who are the best warriors, I'm going to expand on that in a minute, are dedicated to their craft. There's this one preacher that I admire, and I admire the legacy that he lives because now his son has taken over his ministry, and I don't spend any time at all with his son. I spend very little time with him. Very little. But you can see it in his son and the way his son has taken on the legacy of his father. Similar builds, similar facial expressions, similar wives. So his wife seems to be a lot like his mother. These are very smart people. He has learned how to govern himself as his father governed himself. Very conservative, seeming very conservative, very powerful internationally, quietly going about doing the work. Very consistent, true to their friends and their family, dedicated to their craft, living a fasted lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. It's not something that they're trying to create. The discipline is there to live the lifestyle. So it must be for the warrior. If you want to be exceptional at anything, one of my biggest challenges in becoming exceptional, because I'm not really all that exceptional at all, is finding those people I can line up with to be exceptional with. You can do nothing in and of yourself. If you want to be passionate, you got to get around passionate people. And the majority of the people that I've been around, either I'm not demonstrating the passion, and you have to take personal responsibility. I'm obviously not demonstrating the passion necessary to attract passionate people who are just passionately working towards a common goal with each other. In this case, it's to get into Canaan. In this case, it's to war against the enemies in Deuteronomy chapter 23. But these are the principles of life, period. If you're interested in doing anything exceptional to my kids, my grandkids, my brothers and sisters in Kenya, my brothers and sisters in Ghana, my brother in Bangladesh, and whomever else, look at me as a teacher, God bless you. And I'm telling on myself because I have not seen such passionate people in my life, which means I am not such that passionate person. I have to take responsibility for not being as dedicated to my craft as I should be. I don't see it even as I'm confessing it. But obviously the results show that I personally lack something to attract the passionate. The reason why this is important, if you're going to war, you're not going to war by yourself. You're going to war with a team of people. These are principles, people. We're in Deuteronomy chapter 23. We're talking about the purity of the camp, not the purity of one individual. You have to attract the absolute best at what they do. Those who are interested in being exceptional. To my kids, I have not been so fortunate up to this point. My responsibility. But what I'm saying to you is to have the absolute best around you requires you to be the absolute best behind closed doors. You have to have the purity in the camp. You can't preach it. You have to be it. We talked about the importance of starting a thought life in the last video. Your thought life has to guide you. I wrestle against my thought life in thinking the best of all people, regardless of how they respond to me. I have not been the best at it. Because quiet as it's kept, sometimes in my thought life, I want them to go to hell for how they treat me. And then I have to clean up my thought life. And I have to say to myself, if you're trying to cast other people into hell, then you're probably causing yourself damage. I'm just being really honest with you because I want your thought life to be even better than my thought life. I'm still working on myself. But I want my generations to be in a better position than me. Your thought life has to be there, number one. Number two is this part that we're talking about here, which is making sure there's purity in your actions. So we've gone from thought life in the same chapter, Deuteronomy, to purity of your actions. Deuteronomy chapter 23, verse 9 says, when the host, the warriors, the army, go forth against thine enemies. So this is your group going against thine enemies. You can't do it by yourself. Then keep thee from every wicked thing. When you are fighting a fight, stay away from wickedness. Now, let's be honest about this. The material, it says when you're fighting, it doesn't say stay away from all wickedness. I'm just being honest. That's what it says. When the host goes forth against thine enemies, then keep thee from every wicked thing. When there's a ritual in basketball with some people. Now I don't think it's with all, with some people, that when they're playing at championship level, basketball is an American sport. If you're listening out of all depending on when and where you're listening from. When you're at championship level, going after the trophy, going after the title, looking to be number one, they even stay away from having sex with their girlfriends and wives. Some. I'm not saying that's true with all of them, but they stay away from anything that will change their focus at the time of battle. All things are legal, but not all things are expedient. We're talking about being exceptional. I'm not talking about your salvation. Your salvation, your spiritual salvation of believing in God, I hope at this point you already believe in someone higher than you. And I'm not talking about me. And I'm talking about your pastor, your preacher, your evangelist, your whatever, apostle, bishop. I'm talking about the God of all creation. If you didn't create it, and if your family and friends didn't create it, and I'm talking about down to the cellular level, then you need to acknowledge that there is a creator greater than yourself and greater than those who are around you and came before you. God the Father is the creator who sent out of his mouth, his word, and spoke it to his spirit itself, himself, and created coming out of his own mouth. The creation was created by its creator. We are just the creation that was created by his spirit. Speaking of our flesh, but we're also his spirit. Follow me. We're talking about purity within yourself. Purity of the camp. If you don't understand who you are, then you will sabotage the success of the whole camp. When the host goes out to fight the enemy, it is important that we're all on the same page to win. And the motivations are the same. There's a sport called synchronized swimming. When all the people jump into the swimming pool, they're making all the same moves. That's why there has to be wickedness put away from you. Distractions to keep you from making the same moves. Synchronizing your efforts to win the enemy. It's not easy to beat an enemy, but it's very easy to lose to the enemy if we're not synchronized. Making the same moves, being obedient, being sacrificial, walking in the principles of God. But if there's wickedness involved, it throws your game off. I was talking to someone yesterday as I was sitting in my car at the beach, and they were telling me about how ready they are. I said, man, you've been ready all year. Man is brilliant. But the execution is where the success lies. It's not in the brilliance of information which comes from God. Also, it's in the willingness of the human flesh to be set aside and execute. But when you're scared to fail, when you're scared to lose, wickedness has taken over. Deuteronomy chapter 23, verse 9 again, and then we'll read into verse 10. When the host goes forth against thine enemies, then keep thee from every wicked thing. It takes away from the unity. Verse 10, if there be among you any man that is not clean by reason of uncleanness that chance him by night, then shall he go abroad out of the camp. He shall not come within the camp. Verse 11, but if it shall be, when evening comes on, he shall wash with water, and when the sun is down, he shall come into the camp. There's a particular thing that you do when you come back into the camp after being unclean. Watch this. Thou shalt have a place. Well, don't watch it. Listen to this. Thou shalt have a place also without the camp, whither thou shalt go forth abroad. In other words, don't bring your crap into the midst. So there's a saying in when you're working in somebody else's business, leave your home life on the other side of the door when you come to work. Don't bring your mess with you. That's this principle here. When you're fighting against your enemy, don't bring your home life with you. Verse 12, thou shalt have a place also without the camp, whither thou shalt go forth abroad. Verse 13, and thou shalt have a paddle upon thy weapon. This is the only time this word is used. I mean, it's used in other applications, a pen, a tent, like a tent, like a stake, to hold the rope down, which holds the tent up. But this one word, paddle, is used to cover your steps. It's not covering your steps coming in. It's covering your steps going out. Verse 13. And thou shalt have a paddle upon thy weapon, and it shall be when thou wilt ease thyself abroad, thou shalt dig therewith, and shalt turn back and cover that which comes from thee. In other words, when you leave the camp where there's unity, and I'm speaking in terms of war here because that's the implication. Again, you got to be able to pull the type and shadow out of the story, the value of the type and shadow, the value of the story itself are the principles of life and ultimate success today Now, this is the year 2024. I don't know when you're listening, but it was my goal to translate this word into a more current language so that you understand that you can win and be successful even though education is being withheld from you. The type and shadow of this is when you take a step and you cover your steps, leaving that place of unity to do whatever you have to do outside the camp. When you come back at night, which is the beginning of the next day, your mercy, the Bible in the New Testament is his mercies are new every morning. The day starts at night. That's when the day starts. 12:01. 12 o'clock. 12 in 1 second. 12:01. But the sun is down, and you come back into the camp. You come back a new creature. In other words, you don't condemn yourself, and no one can condemn you. Do not allow anyone to step on your spirit because you exercise some level of humanity. It's not acceptable for you to accept that, as long as when you come into the camp, you come into the camp unified to fight the battle. So that the whole team can win. Your dad, your grandpa, your great grandpa, have done my best to attach myself to camps that wanted to unify to be exceptional, to win the battle. What's the battle? Well, here, I'm going to close my Bible to have this conversation with you and just take a few minutes so that you understand what the battle is. At least from your grandpa's eyes, your great-grandpa's eyes. The battle is to live your life according to a certain set of values. Those values will guide you to spend your life with the highest quality people who have those similar values, while maintaining a relationship with those who are interested in your values, while making sure that you have relationships greater than yourself so that you can learn how to perfect those values. So that will be the circuit. Having those who want to learn, having those friends you're walking with, and having those mentors you're learning from. Why? To bring to bear or to bring to the forefront those values for the purpose of, as it is here in Deuteronomy chapter 23, taking over the land. Now, I know you think it's all about being rich. No, I know you think that. Some of you think that. It's about being wealthy. But wealthy is more than just owning the land. It's the responsibility that the children of Israel even failed at even after they got into Canaan, which is maintaining those values, which are very hard to do, especially when you are successful, because you feel like everything is at your disposal, and it is. But you still need the discipline to be able to pass those values down to your kids and to their kids as best you can, maintaining this desire for not only your success, but the success of your legacy. I've told my daughter, I will never be as successful as you can possibly, because you're standing on my shoulders. I already know that I've made enough mistakes to what's that word, when you cause yourself damage. I'm not saying that God doesn't forgive me, but even now I'm having to start over again, and we'll see what happens. I still have visions, I still have dreams and hopes and desires, but the people that I'm around today are not really interested in my success, no matter how interested I am in theirs. So I'll start over again. These principles I'm teaching you are for life. Your life and the life of your generations. The younger you start by surrounding yourself with the best people you can possibly start off with, the more successful you'll be. The cleaner you make your heart, I think the more opportunity you'll have. Not to just be rich, but to be wealthy. The wealth we're talking about is being able to pass down real estate, insurance, and securities, along with those temporal things which are important in life, the values that it takes to usher in the kingdom of heaven. CashApp $Mr. Paul Dozier. I'm sorry, CashApp $the Mr. Paul Dozier. CashApp $the Mr. Paul Dozier. They closed down the other one, Mr. Paul Dozier. So it's the Mr. Paul Dozier. I say that by faith because very few people use this thing. And I hope if these videos have been helpful to you, that you will be helpful to me. I hope that if this is a blessing to you, that you will share with your friends, your family, your Bible studies. Or you can, for those who are in America, Zelle, paulcdozier at gmail.com, paulcdozier at gmail.com. Also have the books on Amazon, Ghetto Education, The Christ Culture. We're on a journey from Genesis to Revelation. I don't know how long it's going to take, but we're on the journey. And thank you for taking the journey with me, and thank you for taking the journey with us who feel like they're called to usher in the kingdom of heaven.